This is breaking news from WCCO News.
Welcome back to WCCO streaming on CBS News Minnesota. Right now we are following breaking news as President Joe Biden and Air Force One have arrived in Minnesota right now. President Biden and his Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack are set to visit Dutch Creek Farms in Northfield. I believe that is Secretary Vilsack, and there is the president right there, right in front of Air Force One, being greeted by a military escort. That is, in fact, the Secretary Vilsack. He's the longtime Secretary of Agriculture, not only for the Biden administration, but he also is a former governor of Iowa and is the former Agriculture Secretary for Barack Obama. They are scheduled to head out to Northfield, Minnesota, which is about 45 minutes south of the Twin Cities International Airport, where they're going to meet and tour a farm. The president is going to announce billions of dollars of aid for farmers and for rural Minnesotans and for rural Americans. The president obviously, perhaps the president, in fact, is going to take, is that Marine One? I suppose it probably is. The president apparently going to fly in Marine One down to Northfield. That would certainly be a relief to any of those of us who might be thinking about taking 35W South today. The president is going to be talking about investing $1.7 billion of that to climate-smart agriculture. The farm he's visiting today has incorporated those practices. It's no secret Minnesota farmers have struggled, especially in recent years. This was the third consecutive season Minnesota has suffered severe and in some places extreme drought conditions. Farming is also not immune to inflation. Through our reporting this year on WCCO, farmers have told us equipment parts and labor costs are more expensive now than they were just 4 and 5 years ago. And there we have a shot of Marine One, and there is the beast. That is the president's car. One would presume that that's going down to Northfield to meet him there. This is an official visit by the President of the United States. This is not a campaign visit, this part of it. This is doing the official duties of the President of the United States. However, later tonight in the Twin Cities, we believe he will be holding a fundraiser. And this is a very important part of the Biden agenda right now. President Biden and Kamala Harris has lost almost all of rural America, almost all of the area outside of the Twin Cities and the Twin Cities suburbs has been going for Republican candidates, i.e. Donald Trump in the past 2 presidential elections. Now, the 2nd congressional district, which is a hybrid of rural areas, including Northfield, and also suburbs in the Twin Cities area, have gone just barely for Joe Biden in 2022. But these are the areas that Joe Biden needs to strengthen his support. So it is not, even though this is an official visit and not a supposed campaign visit, it is not an accident that he is in fact going to an area of rural Minnesota. His press secretary, John Cardin, was asked yesterday why Minnesota, and some reporters jokingly asked if it was because of Dean Phillips, the 3rd district congressional congressman who has announced that he is running against Joe Biden. She actually laughed, the press secretary, and said, "We are very grateful that Dean Phillips has voted 100% or nearly 100% of the time with President Joe Biden." And that is Marine One that will take a pretty short hop down to Northfield. One imagines that that would be a pretty quick ride. Again, the president will not be driving down there. Presumably, he would go obviously straight down 35W. One of the things he's going to be talking about, initiatives in rural areas, including $1 billion to expand independent meat and poultry processing, $3 billion on new market opportunities for farmers to combat climate change. Also, Veteran Affairs Secretary Dennis McDonough will be visiting Iowa to talk about improving access to VA programs. But the important focus here is that he is going to the farming areas, to the rural areas. This used to be Democratic country. These areas used to vote Democratic, and in the past 15 years, what we have seen is a complete 180. These areas have now voted overwhelmingly for the Republican presidential candidate, and further south of Northfield, you have areas that have gone exclusively for President Biden in the last two elections. An impressive sight as Marine One there begins its takeoff. For those of you who may have had a chance to someday or sometime see Marine One or especially Air Force One, it is a remarkable sight. We were watching it taxi into the Twin Cities International Airport. It is an impressive sight and a reminder that this is the president's plane that is coming here to the Twin Cities. Marine One obviously heading out to Northfield right now. The Beast, which is the presidential limousine, we saw an image of that. That actually is transported on Air Force One and then apparently is being driven to Northfield, where he will drive from wherever the helicopter is landing to this farm to talk to the farmers there and make a statement about his commitment to rural agriculture and to the people who live in rural and farmland in America. Again, these are areas where the president and the Democratic Party have struggled in recent years to try and capture the people in these areas. These are people who have gone to Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. It was a shock in 2016, not that as much of a shock in 2020. But the concern is that these are people that the president will need to win if he is going to win the 2024 election. And right now, anybody who has looked at the polls can see that President Trump and President Biden are absolutely tied in almost every poll. And once again, the areas that are going overwhelmingly for President Biden are those urban areas like the Twin Cities, like Duluth, Minnesota, even the suburbs, the inner ring suburbs. But when you get beyond the outstretch of the suburbs in Minnesota, what you have is solid GOP country. And that is something that this is trying to change here, that he is trying to make this appeal to rural America, saying, I stand with you. And the shock for Democrats in the 2016 election was that areas like the area south of Northfield went to President Trump in a grand show of support for then candidate Trump. People here feeling left out, feeling that the American prosperity of some of the past couple of decades has left them behind. Behind me you could see, or behind the Air Force One, you can see an impressive array of helicopters. Those are obviously military helicopters that will be accompanying the president down to Northfield. Quite a show of force and strength. I have not seen, I don't think, in recent times, Air Force One that I can recall taking off from Twin Cities International Airport. Generally, the president flies into the Twin Cities and then he rides his limousine into areas of the Twin Cities or the suburbs, or else he flies to Duluth. He's a frequent visitor to Duluth, but here he's going to a place where obviously Air Force One could not land in Northfield. So this is the procession of the helicopters, an impressive sight. I don't know that people from Highway 62 could see that. This field is the Air National Guard field, which is just inside Highway 62. There is brush and airbrush, and there it takes off. Wow, Marine One taking off from Twin Cities International, accompanied by a fleet of military helicopters. Look at that, an impressive sight as the president and Marine One fly by with, in the foreground, Air Force One. The president of the United States is here in Minnesota. He'll be appearing in Northfield at a farm. We'll have much more on those anticipated remarks from the president later at the farm right here on CBS News Minnesota.